Welcome to One for the Road. I'm Devvy Kid and your commentator. One for the Road was developed and created to help the busy commuter and Americans who don't have access to the internet find out what Congress and the media won't tell you. Today, this morning's segment is why the Environmental Protection Agency must be abolished. The Environmental Protection Agency must be abolished because it is destroying the rights of Americans. It's another monumental waste of money, and America doesn't need it. Like the unconstitutional Federal Department of Education, which employs almost 4,500 people and will suck up a colossal $66 billion this year, the EPA, with its 18,000 employees, will gobble up over $7 billion this year. Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution does not authorize Congress to legislate in the area of the environment. Therefore, it is unconstitutional. All 50 states of the Union have their own version of the EPA as authorized under the 10th Amendment. There is no need for a federal agency. The states of the Union can handle their own environmental needs as authorized by their legislatures. At the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro, June 3rd through the 14th, 1992, the Secretariat for World Order distributed a non-public document titled The Initiative for Echo 92 Earth Charter. It reads in part under policies that must be implemented as follows, quote, "The Security Council of the UN will inform all nations that outmoded notions of national sovereignty will be discarded and that the Security Council has complete legal, military, and economic jurisdiction in any region of the world. The Security Council of the Communist UN will take possession of all natural resources, including the watersheds and great forests, to be used and preserved for the good of the major nations of the Security Council," unquote. In the late Dixie Lee Ray's book, Environmental Overkill, one gets a full accounting of what really went on with Al Gore and his loony friends at the Rio Summit. On page 10 of her book, she writes, quote, "The objective clearly enunciated by leaders of the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, UNCED, is to bring about a change in the present system of independent nations. The future is to be world government with central planning by the UN. Fear of environmental crises, whether real or not, is expected to lead to compliance. If force is needed, it will be provided by a UN green-helmeted police force already authorized by the Security Council," unquote. And that, my fellow Americans, is the reason the ESA, the Endangered Species Act, was done by treaty, in preparation for these other pieces of the grand plan to fall into place. The EPA is the flagship in America to carry out this environmental terrorism against our people. Among the most destructive of its tentacles is the ESA. One of the most horrific examples of this grotesque act is what happened in Klamath Falls in 2001, when the government shut off life-giving water to the farmers, driving them into bankruptcy. On January 12, 2005, a federal judge ruled that the salmon listing which caused our ranchers and farmers to go under was illegally listed. So few understand or even know that the ESA is treaty-based. The Endangered Species Act history can be traced back to Executive Order 11911, issued by Gerald Ford. Its authority is derived from the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora and the Convention on Nature Protection and Wildlife Preservation in the Western Hemisphere, and 3 others. On the EPA's website, it is explained as, quote, "The Endangered Species Act provides a program for the conservation of threatened and endangered plants and animals and the habitats in which they are found," unquote. As I have written so many times, whenever Congress wants to circumvent the U.S. Constitution, they do it by treaty. The Constitution simply grants no authority to the federal government to control the wildlife or fish within the states of the Union. Yet the EPA and the ESA are getting away with destroying the lives and livelihoods of Americans every day because they don't understand the finer legal points of federal jurisdiction. According to constitutional attorney and treaty expert Larry Beecraft, quote, "Under the U.S. Constitution, Congress has the power to make criminal only 4 types of conduct: treason, counterfeiting, piracies and felonies on the high seas, and offenses against the laws of nature, unquote. According to Jerry Ball, author of The Great Communitarian Hoax, quote, a study released by the National Association of Manufacturers, NAM, noted that each year literally thousands of new regulations are emitted by the EPA, and as the regulatory leviathan grows, it increasingly sucks up revenue, resources, and manpower that otherwise would be invested in productive pursuits, thereby driving an increasing number of businessmen and investors offshore. This is precisely the aim of Marxist-Leninist communists and their U.S. communitarian cohorts, unquote. The destruction of American jobs, manufacturing, agriculture, and the eradication of the property-owning middle class have been among the highest priorities of U.S. CFR-dominated communitarian administrations and their Russian and Chinese communist allies. Their chief weapons of destruction have been environmental laws and regulations, heavy taxes, and ruinous trade practices. The quest for world communist domination is not dead. This republic is in great peril. Unless and until Congress is replaced with true constitutionalists in the next election, with the guts to do what has to be done, the American people will continue to be destroyed by unconstitutional agencies like the EPA. And please think about that today on your way to work.